go back and explain a little bit more about networks. So the way sociologists define networks is it's not like Facebook. I mean, there's this whole field that since 1920 has been studying relationships, but not just relationships, but the patterns that they create. So it's the map, the connection of all the relationships that's really important, because some patterns are really good for communication and innovation and collaboration, and some aren't. Another thing to remember is as you do your networks, you may have a formal network like the Alliance, but that formal or intentional network, is this block of people have huge networks. We each have networks of hundreds of people, and those are resources. They're potential resources, but they're only resources if you know about them. So sometimes what I've done in meetings is get everybody to tell everybody else a little bit about their networks. And somebody says, oh, I didn't know you knew somebody at the university of blah, blah, blah. I didn't know you knew somebody at this foundation. And so, sometimes it's good to tell people a little bit about your network. Now, here's the thing. Okay, look over on the right there. Oh, I'm going to try this laser tool. Oh, there was, except see, I did exactly what Margie said I was going to do. Okay, there we go. That is called a hub and spoke network. And it's the way a lot of corporations operate, So you have the manager, the boss, CEO, whatever, and then, people under him or her. And it's a back and forth relationship. You report to them, they tell you what to do or whatever. But it's also an extremely vulnerable one, we're finding out. And why? Why? What happens if the person in the middle is gone? Good. No network anymore, right? And so really important to, maybe I better not use this thing. Okay. It's really important to think about those closing triangles here. Introducing this person to this person, so that then, even if you leave, they still have a connection. Another thing you find a lot, whether it's on organizations or neighborhoods or communities, is this cluster idea that's usually basically unconnected. One thing you need to do is find who are some of these bridge people and work with them to help figure out how might both of these clusters do some project together. And then this one's called elephant tails. And that's, if you ever played when you're a kid, whispered into each other's ear something, and then passed it around, it gets all garbled. Well, communication only passes like 2 steps most of the time. And so you have to look on a map for elephant tails. Now, this other fellow and I looked at like hundreds and hundreds of different successful and problematic networks. And we found that the ones that are most successful in promoting collaboration and innovation look like this, and we call it a smart network. So you've got a core, and like maybe if you're a project, this core is only like 10 people. But if you're like if you think about all the stuff that's happening with healthy housing, it might be thousands of people, just in Minneapolis, St. Paul alone. And so you want there to be lots of diversity in here. Now, everybody doesn't know everybody else, but they know of somebody, and there's lots of diversity. So you have housing organizations, you have hospitals, you have community people involved in this, and they all, know of each other. And then you have this huge periphery. Now, we don't think about, but peripheries are people maybe one person has a connection to, maybe, like I'm in your periphery now, right? You can call me up and say, I have this question about this. So I'm in your periphery. You need a periphery that 3 to 5 times as many people in it as your core. And again, we don't know each other's peripheries. I have a fabulous periphery. But so you can call me up and ask who my periphery is sometime. So, this is like, if you have something like this, there's going to be lots of exciting stuff happening. So real quick. Okay, this is how it all fits together. So here's a woman, Rhonda. She runs a very small organization called Community Food Initiative, and she's passionate about community gardens and about young people. And so she is a network leader or a network weaver. And that means instead of just telling people what to do, she tries to build networks. She also has an excellent network herself, and she's gone to lots of different conferences to find find out innovations in community garden. She went to one on entrepreneurship and found out about youth entrepreneurship, and her wheels start turning. Oh, I can learn from that and add that to a youth gardening program we're thinking about doing. So she set up a youth gardening program. It's, just one of her staff starts working with some kids in a housing project. And, okay, good, we just have but they added this twist, that the kids grew food for their families, and they also went to the farmer's market and sold it, so they had a little more money in their family. Really, but it wasn't a big job. They just got a little tent, and look at they're selling. I think that's an amaranth. I don't know what that is. So you just start with small that really start engaging people. These kids designed this for what they want to do, but they also brought in, they realized pretty soon, this staff person is a bit, they don't really know anything about gardening. Let's get in some master gardeners. So they got a bunch of master gardeners involved in working with the kids on the garden. They also, there's a group working on entrepreneurship to teach them more about starting a business. And then they had a kitchen incubator, a licensed processing facility. And so the kids started making things like sauerkraut and pickles and all kinds of stuff because they went to the kitchen. Oh, well, why couldn't we do some of this? So again, make these networks among different types of organizations. Each one can bring in a new capacity, and then you urge them to try something out, experiment. And this one I just love. So, there's like about 20 kids, all different ages, from you can see about 3 to 17 in this. They built a fabulous peer support network. But this is the mayor of our town. And he's coming there both to tell them how wonderful they are, but they're telling him, he's asking them, tell me what it is about what you're doing that works, because we want to do it in other places. And so you get people on the ground in these projects involved in policy directly, even if it's city policy here. Ours is a small city. So your network is engaged in policy, and it begins to be able to spread. So I love this image. Who knows what this is? Ginger. Okay, ginger is a rhizome. And there's a lot of ways that network stuff is like what we call rhizomatic. So every one of those kids is learning leadership. They're learning how to be their own network leader. They learn how to take care of each other. And so they're sprouting other leaders as they, help each other out. Each program that we did, they start small and then build on, get more complex as it goes along until you have something that really, is starting to change that community. So just real quickly, when you have a network, there are these different kinds of pieces of that network, connecting people, and sometimes you have to convene them, not always, helping people initiate and act, that self-organizing part, and then supporting the network, helping them think about communication.
Related to that, do you at some point talk about attrition and networks dying? How do you avoid that?
Well, a network, a formal network sometimes does die, but networks, meaning relationships, don't necessarily die. But sometimes the formal networks die because people haven't spent enough time on bringing new people in, and because they spent too much time being boring, sitting around the table, instead of making it interesting and helping